Hey everybody, on today's episode we're actually going to jump into a song that I've already recorded, but I'm going to teach you guys a little bit of my mixing technique and how I actually wrote this song and the process that went behind it, and you'll get a little bit of a sneak peek behind my mastering process as well. So if you guys are interested in any of that content, we'll go ahead and jump straight into that video and how I wrote a space metal song. This is a song that I actually wrote a year ago after I saw Dune Part 2 and decided I wanted to write a song that was kind of themed in the Dune universe. It has no lyrics, it's all instrumental, but that's where you're going to hear some of my thought process around the choices that I made as far as musically trying to tell a story in this song. So I'm going to pull up the screen here, and we're actually going to jump into the instruments themselves, what I did here, and then give you guys a little bit of a mix rundown here real quick. So let's start with the drum group. So as you can see here in the drum group, let me go ahead and mute all the other channels real fast. This is what the drums sound like. Really like the tone, especially I really haven't touched it since last year. There's a few things that I would have done differently at this point, but it's been a year and my abilities have definitely progressed, I hope, over the past year. But we're really not going to talk about the actual recording process. We're really just looking at the mixing and the writing process at this point. So let me turn off all these other drums real quick just so you can hear some of the things that happen and how I got the tones. So in my kick bus that I have saved here, I actually just have an EQ and a little bit of reverb. And so without it, it sounds like this. In the EQ, what I did was I boosted a little bit at about the 70 mark, and that kind of starts to shave off around the 100, but it gives a little bit extra of that sub energy behind the kick drum. So it sounds like this with it off and with it on. Just a little bit more body, sounds really good. And then I don't know if you're gonna be able to hear it, but there's like 10% here of some drum reverb. I mean, it's faint. It's just enough to give it, just to make it sound like the microphone had picked up a little bit around it. The snare, the processing that we've got going on the snare here is I've actually got a gate on the snare drum itself. And then we've got EQ8 going on here, shaving off a lot of the low end. And then I have a compressor happening here to help compress the snare hits to get above a certain volume level that I was trying to reach. And then another drum room reverb. And I will go ahead and hit play here, so that way you guys can hear what the snare sounded like before and after. So here's before. And as you can hear, I actually didn't turn it off, but I've got this Valhalla Supermassive just for the snare, and we are pushing the snare through it. So this is without the Valhalla Supermassive, and with. Just really brings that snare to life, especially for the style of music that we're doing here. Toms, the processing is a lot similar to the snare drum itself. There's a compressor, there is an EQ here, and then a little bit more drum reverb. And I actually there's really not a lot of sections in this song with some tom work. Here's a little bit of something here. Like I said, it's not much. It's just some hits. Very simple. There's some overheads here. They're kind of weak, I'm not gonna lie. I just keep them turned off because the overheads for this mix just did not work out the way that I wanted them to. And then we've got the room microphones here. So as you can see, it's giving a lot of body to the sound. And so when I blend all those together, we get back to this drum set sound. So let's move on to the bass. So here on the bass guitar, I've actually got the bass split out into two, and there's a lot of processing going on here, so bear with me while I show you this. Here's what the bass sounds like by itself. So what's happening here is I actually have the same bass track laid out twice. You can see it here. There's a low and a high. And what I did here is they're both lined up perfectly with each other. But for the low, what I do is I went in, I added some compression to it, and then I shaved off all the high end, basically starting at 250 all the way up. And then for the high end, there's a little bit more processing that's going on here. There is another, it has a compressor as well, just to kind of even out those bass notes. Then we have the shave off of the low end right near the same point that the low guitar started. So you'll start to see this cross little thing happen with the wave files. And this is all in an attempt to be able to control just a certain amount of frequencies. And because I only want to distort and drive, allow me to overdrive, distort, whatever I need to do to the high end of the bass without screwing up the low end clarity. So I actually have this preset that I've built just called Crowned Bass. My band Crowned actually used this tone on our last record. And this is what it sounds like with everything turned off. I'll turn the compressor off, Archetype Gojira, and the compressor. And this is what bass sounds like, the high end sounds like without all that. It's already got a good tone, but I want to compress it. Cut the low end. Run it through Archetype Gojira. And that is this plugin right here. And then compress it. Just one more time. Honestly, don't even know if it's doing anything, but it's there. And then the low end, same thing, like I said earlier, but we're cutting off the high end. So here's what it sounds like before. There's a lot more volume from the low end than the high end, and you'll hear why. I'm just blending it to taste. So here is with the compressor on. Doing quite a bit of work there. And then we'll add the EQ. So now you just have the low end from the bass, and we can add those two together, and it sounds like this. And on the main bus for the bass group, there's quite a bit going on. And I had to do this in order to create some consistency. So the first thing that happens is there is just a little bit of low-end information I needed to take out. And then we go into this bass group compressor, basically just really wanting to push some of the sound. So let me actually turn these off. Just a little bit of more of like a gain push than anything. Then we'll go into this compressor. Glue everything together. Go back into another EQ. Shave off a little bit more of that annoying noise at the back end. And then I have another EQ. It's literally just being used for the tonality of the plugin itself. I don't have anything shaving off. I just like the way it sounds, so I kept it. It's subtle, but it sounds, in my opinion, it sounds good. And then At the end of the chain, we have a side chain compressor, which is actually taking a signal from the kick drum and allowing the bass guitar to duck underneath the kick drum to let the initial impact of the kick hit. So here's what it sounds like. You'll start to hear it duck every time when that kick drum hits. So when you blend them together, it helps that kick drum stick out in the mix and not get buried by the bass guitar. So that's the bass channels. Let's move over to the guitars. There's a guitar bus, and then I have the individual guitars, and I don't have them printed. It's still the original DIs, so the channels are gonna have a bunch of stuff going on. I'm not gonna dive too much into it just because this is where you're really just developing your own guitar tone. I'm wanting to talk about the stuff that's post. I'll jump into one and then you'll get the idea for all of them. So I am pushing into, even before I get to the plugin, I'm already cutting some low end out of the guitar DI before it even gets there. I'm compressing the tone so that way all of my notes are coming through evenly, and then we're going into archetype Gojira. Just to a default plugin. Like, I didn't change anything as far as all this goes. I literally hit default, and there's a couple things that happen with the pedals, but as far as tone from the guitar, nothing different. And then I just had to put a little bit of a noise gate on it because it does this. I actually don't know if you can hear that, but it's hissing. So just a little bit of a noise gate to kind of drop that out. And this is what the guitars sound like. So let's cut all these effects off the guitar bus real quick, and I'll show you once again. So here's the guitars, the guitar group without any effects. I run it into the CLA 76 compressor just to glue it up. I come here into the EQ and I shaved off any extra low end that was causing any muddiness. And I shaved off a little bit of the high end here because it was just, the harshness was a little too much. Just smoothens out the guitar tone a little bit, in my opinion. And then I've got another EQ here that I'm actually not using. But you'll see there's another sidechain compressor, and that's actually taking input from the snare. So a lot of times guitars and snare drums land in the same realm, and I want, once again, that snare to pop out in the mix. And so I've got this turned on. You'll hear the guitars dip every time the snare hits. We turn the drums on, you can hear that happening. Helps the snare stick out in the mix. And then I've just got this lead guitar, which once again, same kind of setup that I had beforehand with the rhythm guitars. And there is also a noise gate, because if I turn it off, good lead tone. I actually think if you're looking at Archetype Gojira, it's just Rich Lead by the Born of Osiris plugin from Lee. It's kind of my standard go-to lead tone, especially when I'm just writing and just trying to get stuff down. And then we got a bunch of cinematic effects happening in this track, like some booms, explosions, swells, and then we've got the sub 808. And that's all the inputs that we have going into the channels and what we've got going on. We're actually gonna jump over here and I'm gonna let you listen to what the full mix sounds like with everything, and I'll kind of talk you through what I was doing here. Here's just the drums. I try to keep things in between the 12, between 18 and 6. 6 is a little hot, but it's working. It's around the 12. It does peak up a little bit past 6. I try to keep some headroom in the track. Let's add the bass in. Once again, you can see with all that compression and everything, I can really control the bass guitar, and it's sitting right there at -12. We'll add the guitars in. Guitars, once again, -18, -12, really sitting in the mix well. I want the guitars to be heard, but I also enjoy the sound of the guitars kind of setting a bed, if that makes sense. Really setting into the mix and not sticking too far out. There's a lot of metal music where guitars are sitting so high up in the mix that it's like distracting. This is my way of trying to like keep it's really setting into the mix very well. And then the lead. Once again, right there at the -18. Cinematic effects. Let me find a spot where you can actually hear the cinematic effects come in. So around 12, and then the bass drop itself. This is just at taste. Which is right there at -12, which allows me to have some headroom. So you're gonna see over here on my master chain, it's not really getting anywhere past like -6, I believe. This allows me to mix, and whenever we get into the mastering space, I can actually push a little bit more from a mastering side of things and really allow myself that headspace in that room to make the mix louder and glue it together a little bit more. So let's talk through the songwriting process a little bit. So if you've ever seen Dune, Paul Atreides, the main character, played by Timothée Chalamet, is living on a desert planet. The name of the planet is Arrakis. And basically, long story short, Paul becomes part of the people that live there on Arrakis. And they have a ritual where they ride sandworms. If you've ever seen it, so sick. If you haven't seen it, you need to go stop right now and go watch it. But basically, I wanted to try to instrumentally write a song from Paul Atreides' perspective of seeing the ritual happen, building up to the moment where he is getting to ride the sandworm, and then his experience riding the sandworm and the joy and elation that comes afterwards. So you're going to hear that here. Here at the beginning, this is where Paul feels that excitement of seeing somebody ride a sandworm. Then it goes into a segment where he starts to grapple with the idea that this could be a possibility for him. And then looking forward to that piece that if I can achieve this, I feel like I can believe in myself and allow the people of Arrakis to believe in me as well. So there's this little preview of what's coming at the end. Cool, huh? And then it goes back into that feeling he had at the beginning of the song. And then in the movie Dune, they have these things called thumpers, and these thumpers are a device that they can stick down into the sand, and they actually create a thumping sound in the earth to attract the sandworms. And so I'm actually going to play this for you, and I recreated that sound here in Ableton. It's really simple. It was just a bass drum sample that I put a bunch of reverb on and some delay, and that's it. That's all I did to the track. So you'll hear coming out of that main guitar part, Paul Atreides now putting the thumper in the ground and attracting that sandworm. And from there, the sandworm arrives and it is chaotic. So we get into this moment. Well, we would consider this a breakdown, but this breakdown in itself builds into the moment where he gains control and he's able to ride the sandworm, which brings back that main guitar riff from the beginning of the song and combines it with the chaos of the breakdown. It's almost like a victory moment. And then we hear that feeling that we previewed at the beginning of how he believed he would feel after riding the sandworm. And that is the song in itself. So before I let you listen to the whole thing, I want to jump into my mastering chain real quick so you can really see what I do to bring the song to life. So once again, here is before the mastering chain. Here is the mastering chain turned on, and I'm going to mute my microphone because my voice is going to get louder whenever I turn this chain on. So you can hear the difference of how it sounds glued together. And so in this opening segment, I'm actually just going to play this first riff for you again, and I'm going to turn that mastering chain on and off so you can hear the difference of what's happening with the track. As you can hear, there is a stark difference, and let me walk you through these pieces and tell you what I'm doing. So there is an EQ right here at the beginning, and it is doing just the most subtle things. And so I have boosted the high end a little bit by like 1.5 decibels. The mid-range, I actually brought it down a little bit over 1/4 of a decibel, and then I pushed the bass realm up just 0.12 of a decibel just to help shape the sound overall. Then it goes into a compressor. Those compressor settings are set pretty intense. The attack is set to a 10 on this glue compressor, which is built into Ableton. And then the release is pretty quick as well. And the ratio is 2:1. I have the dry and wet signal turned up all the way, and I have a way to control the compression amount that you hear in the song as I turn this knob up and down. And so if I turn it down, the threshold goes back up and there's no makeup gain. So less effect. The more I turn it up, the further the threshold comes down and squashes the track and turns that makeup gain up. And so I like it kind of a little bit over halfway at about 60% to make only about 4 dB of makeup gain and a threshold of -14. Turn the compression all the way up, and then it goes, I don't use the overdrive here, especially in metal music. Things are already getting a little distorted. I try to take care of all that in the beforehand as far as guitars and drums and bass goes. And then I have a stereo enhancer just a little bit. The more you turn it up, the noisier things get, but it's just enough to help spread that sound just a tiny bit. And then we've got a limiter here, and I've got the limiter set at -3 dB. I like, personally, I have found that sending my mixes finalized at -3 dB helps with all the different streaming platforms. And so some streaming platforms will compress at a higher level, some will want to push. And so I've found -3 dB is a safe realm for me as far as my mastering chain goes. Creating mixes that allows me to upload to things like Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and have at least a decent consistency across each platform. So that's it. This is how you write a space metal song. I love Dune. I love songwriting. And so what a cooler way to combine two of my favorite things. See what we can come up with afterwards. So I'm actually going to turn my mastering chain back on. I'm going to mute this microphone and we're going to listen to this song together. Thanks for stopping by. So glad that you guys stayed till the end of the video. If you are new here and you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and do. We are trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and the only way that we can do it is with your help, and it's beneficial to the both of us. You will get to know whenever the new content comes out, and it helps me get further down into the algorithm so that way more people can see this kind of content. I really appreciate all the time you guys have spent with me and all of the comments and the likes and the subscriptions that you guys have given me over the past couple months. It means so much to me, and I see it, and I just feel so honored that you guys are even spending your time with me. So you know, we got videos coming like this every single week, and I can't wait for you guys to tune in with me next time. I'll see y'all then.